Whoops, spoiler alert. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Yi. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more related frugality and finance content. And today I want to talk about Squid Game. As if not enough people are talking about it right now. I do realize that I am probably very, very late to the game, but that's because I've been busy and I've been distracted by other shows such as You. And even though I wanted to watch this particular show, like the day it came out, I had an exam that weekend and then I got distracted by the other TV shows. So here I am giving a financial reaction review perspective of what I saw in Squid Game. Please be aware that I will be talking about anything that I found financially related in the show, which is kind of everything. So if you haven't seen the show yet, please don't watch this video unless you like spoilers, and if so, why? Why are you like that? So for starters, it is an extreme violence show that not many people will probably like or want to watch, but I personally loved it and the plot was amazing. I think it was very, very well written and the actors were just great. At least the main characters were. The show basically follows this one main character called Giun, who is player 0456, and in the show there exists this very mysterious game, kind of Hunger Games style, where the people who are recruited to play this game are people who are in extreme amounts of debt, pretty much have no support system. They've made some bad choices in life, although obviously a lot of these choices are propagated by the conditions to which they were born. For a lot of these recruits, these decisions basically get them to a really bad spot where they are signing away the physical rights to their organs, like their bodies, whatever. They're recruited into this game. Once they're in this game, they find out that basically people have to die in order to win money, and that's how the players get eliminated. And the only way that they can advance through each game and win the grand prize is by completing 6 games. These 6 games are basically childhood games that, you know, kids in Korea played years and years ago. So a lot of the older generation would be more familiar with these games, and I think that's a very intriguing part of the show. It shows how something really innocent can be incredibly barbaric when put into a different context. Let me tell you, when I was watching the first episode, I felt like I was watching Uncut Gems again, except it's like the Korean version, and man, I did not like the main character at all. He was the worst in my eyes. I was looking at him, I was like, are you serious? Like, are you really gonna do this again? This man literally gambles away any money he comes into, and then he wins money, and then someone steals it from him. You know what? He deserved that. He absolutely deserved that money to be stolen from him. I'm sitting there watching this like, I don't like this guy. Like, please tell me he is not the main character. And turns out he's the main character, of course. So there's a lot of room for development. He kind of just expected his mom to give him money, and he just bet all of his money on the possibility of winning more. It's kind of like the lottery being like the poor person's tax, and I don't disagree with that. I think that, you know, pure gambling, I'm not a fan. If it's like a game where you can actually have a strategy, I understand that, but otherwise you're basically throwing your money away. Might as well invest it. I just did not like this character. He just seemed incredibly greedy, and he just kept putting himself into these really bad situations. What I would personally love to know is how he actually got into debt in the first place. I'm guessing it was just a pattern of what we saw in like the first episode, but I wonder if there was, you know, a really huge defining moment for him. And I think that during the show they kind of hint at it. It seemed like someone died in front of him, and you know, that's why he wasn't there when his daughter was born. So I like that they hinted at it, but I don't know if that was the moment where his life kind of started going downhill, but it seems like it might have been. And his childhood friend, who is supposed to be this really successful professional, is somehow found in the same bad position, but he seems to be in more white-collar type debt. So it's really interesting to see the contrast between people who kind of came from the same place. One kind of made his way up in the socioeconomic ladder, but they both just end up in a terrible financial position. Next, I want to talk about the types of games. The premise of all of the games in the show is that they eliminate inequalities and every contestant has a fair chance at winning. As we see during the show, this is definitely not it. This is not what happens. Although they get rid of players who were cheating, there were still very apparent inequalities in this game. When the players decide to come play again, you can see one of them brought in a knife, the other player brought a match that helped her in one of the games, and the guard somehow didn't see her using this match under a slide that had open sides. Like, I don't know how she got away with that. I don't know how the other bad guy got away with it, but clearly some people had advantages in terms of self-defense and being able to pass the game. Even though they're trying really hard to make this game as fair as possible, some things still slip through the cracks. And if you think about it, the games themselves are not fair. Some of them were definitely geared towards people's physical condition and other strengths that they had. For example, red light, green light, that really highlighted people's reactions to things. So you know how there's fight or flight? It really highlighted how people have a freeze reaction. And the people who had the freeze reaction are the ones who had the nerves of steel and were able to somehow survive that first, complete bloodshed. Tug of War was also a game where objectively, probably the strongest team will win, even though they had an interesting strategy. Yes, teamwork is great, but sometimes strength prevails. And if strength had teamwork on their side, then they probably would have won no matter what. In the fifth game, when they realized that one of the players is, very well versed in glass manufacturing, I thought it was so cool that he could determine the difference. If they're allowing people to use their physical strengths to win a game, why would they not allow people to use their intellect to win a game? Another thing that I actually saw people talk about before I even watched the show was the captors or the guards. I want to know where they're from. I saw this one theory that if you had chosen the red envelope in the first game when the recruiter comes up to them, then that's maybe how they become guards. But I want to know what their position in life was at that point, because it seemed like they were also not desperate, but maybe they also needed money, because there was this group of guards who were trying to sell organs on the black market, and that to me tells me either they were trying to make a quick buck or they also desperately needed to pay off their debts. And so maybe they were recruited the same way and then they were offered this really high salary in order to actually conduct these games, because they're definitely not living in these luxury conditions. And last but not least, I want to talk about character development. Now, obviously, the main character was not my favorite at the beginning. In fact, I hated him. My favorite character was actually player 1. You know what? It still is. He's still my favorite character. I am not taking that back. But I can appreciate when a character has developed into a full butterfly. And that is what the main character did, 456. He was great. You can see that he definitely held on to his morality and integrity throughout the episodes, even though he was tested. He was basically betrayed by his childhood friend. He saw how ugly people can be to each other, how they can trick each other just for money. And I like that he was the protagonist in the end, because I can see how he can appeal to the average viewer to offer that kind of human perspective into this show. I did not like Ali because honestly, he was too innocent. He was dumb. I'm sorry. He got played. He got played one too many times, and I think he should have seen that coming. Once Sang-woo yelled at him, I would have been like, no. I'm gonna take my marbles and I'm gonna bring them over here and you can stay there. Sorry, bye. Don't cover them up with a jacket for no reason. What? I know that people are like, yeah, he deserved better. He did deserve better. I agree with that, but he got played. He got played too much, and he let himself get played. That's why I don't like him. I liked number 67. Kind of wanted her to win, but in the end, she did, or her little brother did win in the end, which is what's good. Now to player 1. He was my favorite character. He offered the comic relief that I would like in a show. He was great. He offered many words of wisdom. He had an elderly perspective on things. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And then you find out that he was the bad guy all along, even though they were gangbu. Then you find out he just organized the whole thing, and he just did it for fun. He did it for fun, but you have to give him credit. Everyone wanted everyone who ended up being in the game chose to stay there, signed away their physical rights, didn't read the fine print, didn't clarify terms like eliminated. What does eliminated mean? The fact that people could actually leave the game after that first crazy round was really what roped me into the show, because I didn't really understand the premise. I was like, oh my god, like they have to stay here and just play these games no matter what. No, people actually came back, and that's what's so scary. Like, they thought that the outside world was worse than this Hunger Games style game. And it's pretty frightening that you can see people now are in those positions and that they may be willing to do some of the things that are depicted in the show and put themselves through that just so that they don't have to live in the conditions that they are in, at the prospect of winning this huge prize that may or may not actually changes our lives. I personally am not that extreme with my debt. I definitely hate it. Like I said in my last video, like I hate being in debt. But thankfully, I have a roof over my head, I have a support system, I have a job. Like, I cannot complain. I absolutely cannot complain. And I'm trying to pay my debt off and be proactive about it. But some people just don't have the means, or they've been beaten down so much throughout their lives that they don't see the point in continuing to try. And that's very much highlighted in this whole show. How financial ruin can really affect your outlook on life and whether it's worth continuing. So clearly player one has had this really negative, pessimistic view on humanity and how people just wouldn't help people in need. In the end, he was wrong, but that one last game that he had, that was just one incident that turned out to be positive. I think that he probably saw so much damage throughout his life that made him see humanity in such a pessimistic way, and he's probably right about that. Do I agree with creating a sports-like game where people are eliminated? Probably not, but then you wouldn't have a show. So in the show context, great, fine. We all like Hunger Games, we like Squid Game. In real life, not so much. Doesn't seem so fun. Seems kind of horrifying. So you can take the view that he's just like this rich man who's like very detached from the players, but instead he decides to actually go into the game, and he's treated with respect by the main character. They end up being allies. Despite creating this really strong friendship with the main character, he still continued to view humanity in a very pessimistic way. I actually would like to know how he became rich. They don't really go into that. You know, you just know that he had this childhood where he played marbles. He had this cute childhood home in a certain neighborhood. But what happened after that? How did he become so rich? What are some of the experiences that he saw throughout his life that made him have this really sad worldview that may or may not reflect reality? If his goal was solely entertainment, like he kind of talked about at the end of the show, then he accomplished that. But if he really wanted to enact some sort of change, then I feel like he could have done something else. You know, he could have just gone off and paid people's debts. That'd be fun. I think that would be fun. And other like random things, I want to know why he decided to dye his hair red. I don't think they explained it, but I just wonder why it's red. Like, why did he pick that color? Or he just wanted something fun. Maybe the grass was just green. I don't know. Definitely a lot of heavy commentary on finances, debt, and living in debt. If you think about it, a lot of people are living this way, not just in Korea, obviously. The US has a huge student loan debt problem, and I'm definitely one of those people included in those numbers. I do not want to be anymore, but I know there are people who are struggling to pay off their debts, maybe not even making their payments because they don't have enough money to make their payments, and they can't file for bankruptcy because student loans are not bankruptable, so they're just in debt forever, and they go to collections, and it's just like this never-ending cycle. Like, you basically can't get rid of student loans until you pay them off or you're eliminated, and it's a really sad look at it, and that's just only a portion of the types of debts that people have. Consumer debts, house debts, you name it, people are struggling, and I really like that the show highlighted how terrible those situations can be for some people. Alright, thank you for listening to my unsolicited Squid Game review. And I want to know if you would ever sacrifice your morals or your integrity for money. Let me know in the comments.